This is Omnibus 3 Primary, Project 2, Option 3. The three forms of government. When Rousseau describes the three main forms of government, aristocracy, monarchy, and democracy, he is talking about the administration of laws, not the legislation of them. When he uses the term government, he is referring to executive or magisterial duties. The government is, according to page 102 of the Social Contract, an intermediary body established between the subjects and the sovereign for their mutual communication, a body charged with the execution of the laws and the maintenance of freedom. The members of the body are called magistrates. End quote. He believes that the best form of legislation is always direct democracy, where every citizen has equal say in the lawmaking process. However, different states call for different forms of administration and executive government. The first type of government that we will talk about is democracy. Page 110 of the Social Contract says, "The sovereign may put the government in the hands of the whole people, so that there are more citizen magistrates than there are ordinary private citizens. This form of government is known as democracy." A democracy is a government where the sovereign, or the general will when it makes laws, also enforces these laws. Page 112 says, "He who makes the law knows better than anyone how it should be executed and interpreted." So it might seem that there could be no better constitution than one which united the executive power with the legislative. End quote. According to Rousseau, this is a government without government, as it makes the magistrate and citizen the same person. There are not many pros of democracy, according to Rousseau. He believes that combining the legislative and executive duties is not wise. Page 103 says, "If the sovereign seeks to govern, or if the magistrate seeks to legislate, order gives way to chaos." End quote. Blurring the line between executive and legislative would likely lead to disorder and corruption. According to Rousseau, a democracy is the most liable to civil strife because it is very unstable. Rousseau believes that it is hypothetically possible for there to be a good democracy, but it requires near impossible circumstances. First, the state would have to be very small so that each citizen could know all the others extremely well. It would also require the citizens to possess an unrealistic level of virtue, so that they would administer only for the good of the state and not for themselves. Because of this, Rousseau says in page 114, "If there were a nation of gods, it would govern itself democratically. A government so perfect is not suited to men." Next form of government that we will talk about is aristocracy. In page 112 of the Social Contract, it says, "The sovereign may confine the government to the hands of a few, so that there are more ordinary citizens than there are magistrates. This form of government is known as aristocracy." An aristocracy is governed by a small number of magistrates. In it, the legislative and executive are two separate bodies. Page 114 says, "We have here two distinct artificial persons, namely the government and the sovereign." End quote. Rousseau names three types of aristocracy: natural, which is ruled by elders; elective, which is where the citizens elect their magistrates; and hereditary, which is where people are magistrates by birth. Rousseau says that elective aristocracy is the best, and this is what he is referring to when he uses the term aristocracy. An aristocracy is best suited to states of intermediate size. According to Rousseau, an aristocracy is a better form of government than a democracy. In popular government, also known as democracy, all citizens are born magistrates regardless of their personal qualifications. In an aristocratic government, all the magistrates are elected, so that ideally only the best of the best would hold these positions. It is best to have the wisest and most qualified govern the rest, as long as they work for the common good. However, there is a danger of this type of government becoming corrupt. If the magistrates stopped acting in accordance with the general will and followed their own interests, the state will suffer. The magistrates will also be tempted to hold themselves above the law, since they are the ones administering it. This may encourage the magistrates to act selfishly, as there are no consequences for their actions. The third and final form of government we will talk about is monarchy. Page 110 of the Social Contract says, "The sovereign may concentrate the entire government in the hands of one single magistrate, from whom all the others will derive their power. This third form of government is called monarchy." In a monarchy, the legislative and executive powers are also separate, but unlike in an aristocracy, where the executive power is given to multiple people, the executive power is held by only one person, who is often called the king. This form of government is unique because, quote, "Contrary to the other administrations where a collective being represents an individual. In this one, an individual represents a collective being, end quote. And that quote was found on page 116. This type of government is best suited to a large state. A benefit of monarchy is that it is very efficient. Since the executive power rests in one man's hand, he can do what he deems necessary without others hindering him. However, for the same reason, such a government can easily become tyrannical. Because one person has the most command, it is tempting for them to abuse their power and try to dominate others. Another con of such a government is that the sole power of appointing officials to help administrate lies with the king. Instead of the people appointing all their magistrates on the basis of merit, the king will appoint anyone he desires to be a magistrate under him. Page 119 says, "In republics, the popular choice almost always elevates to the highest position only enlightened and capable men, who fill their office with honor. Those who rise under monarchies are nearly always muddled little minds. The people is much less often mistaken in such choices than is a prince." End quote. Yet another con of a monarchy is that to prevent a power vacuum and provide continuity of succession, the king's son often becomes ruler after his father. This creates a problem, because it is near impossible that the king's entire line will be good at ruling. Which government best suits America, according to Rousseau? I believe that Rousseau would say a monarchy would be the best government for America. Though he prefers aristocracy as the ideal form of government, he admits that different states require different governments. Page 111 says, "Throughout the ages, men have debated the question, what is the best form of government? And yet they have failed to see that each of the possible forms is best in some cases and worse in others. End quote. Because of America's size, I think he would say monarchy is better suited to it." Page 111 says, "Monarchy suits large states." End quote. I argue that according to Rousseau, America already has a monarchy. Remember, when Rousseau talks of the three forms of government, he is only talking about the executive function and not the legislative function. He believes that in every state the laws should be created by direct democracy, but that the laws can be enforced differently. America has a monarchy, according to Rousseau's definition, because its executive power is vested in a single person, who we call the president. The president has the power to appoint magistrates under him, such as his vice president and the members of his cabinet. However, Congress has the power to reject presidential nominees, so it is not perfectly a monarchy, but I think it is closest to what Rousseau describes as one. I would disagree with Rousseau that monarchy is the best form of executive government for America, though. I think we would be much better off if people could elect members of the president's cabinet and other executive roles through an electoral college like we do for the president. This may eliminate some partisan politics, as all magistrates would be elected by the people instead of by the president, who puts people in power who best serve his aims. And finally, what is biblical government? What does the Bible have to say? I believe the most biblical government is the government God established for the Israelites during the time of Moses. The Israelites' highest leader was God, who had judges to rule under him and execute his will. However, Israel was a special case, as they were God's chosen people. Other nations won't have such an ideal government. Though other nations aren't ruled directly by God, as the Israelites were, their rulers should still seek to be led by God's word, which defines a good government as one which ensures justice, takes care of the needy, and brings peace. Psalm 72:4 says that a Christ-like leader will, quote, "bring justice to the poor of the people. He will save the children of the needy and will break in pieces the oppressor."